Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to The Wellness Coach on Blog Talk Radio. I'm your host, Edie Summers, and we have a really special treat today. My guests today are Doug Noll and Aleya Dao, and we're going to be talking about emotional and spiritual intimacy. Doug Noll is the author of Elusive Peace, an award-winning book, professional mediator, and winner of this year's California Lawyer Attorney of the Year for his work teaching female inmates mediation and peacemaking skills at a California state prison through his project, Prison of Peace. And he has teamed up with his wife, Aleya Dao. She's an energetic practitioner and sound healer. I just listened to her music. It's absolutely incredible. And they're going to be teaching relationship skills to couples. And over dinner one night, the couple discussed how so many couples are suffering from a lack of emotional intimacy. Through both of their different practices, they discovered that they teach the same principles of emotional and spiritual intimacy, but in different ways. They decided to come together to offer a free video for couples teaching the principles of intimacy through empathy. I find that when people in conflict feel heard by the other party, a shift happens, and resolution can come easily after that experience, Noll observes. Dao uses her skills as a sound healer and energy practitioner to teach couples about the energetic shift that can happen when couples experience empathy without judgment from their partners. Using the combined skills and different approaches from the two practices merged together, the emotional, intellectual, and spiritual needs for couples to create authentic intimacy that results in the joy and bliss most couples strive for but cannot achieve. So welcome, Doug and Aleya. How are you?
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. Hi. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. I'm so grateful, and I'm really excited. I think this is going to be I think we're going to learn a lot. I know I'm going to learn a lot today, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will as well, too. So I was wondering first if you could tell us about your personal journeys that brought you both to where you are today.
Doug, why don't you start?
Okay. Well, professionally, I am trained as a lawyer, and I also have a master's degree in peacemaking and conflict studies. I started out in my career as a hardcore trial lawyer, and through a series of events that I don't need to bore you with, I came to realize that being a trial lawyer was not my calling, and entered into my course of study for my master's degree in peacemaking, and was basically trained by the Mennonites, which is one of the traditional Christian Protestant faith peace traditions in the Christian faith. I'm not a Mennonite myself, but they opened my eyes to possibilities that I had never seen as a lawyer, and that is that human conflict is multidimensional and very layered and very nuanced, but also highly predictable in terms of how people fight. So since I left the practice of law in 2000, I have devoted my life to teaching people how to be effective peacemakers and using the skills myself as a professional when called into intense and highly intractable conflicts of all different types. And so that's essentially what I do.
And then I was going to ask you really quickly, Doug, weren't you doing martial arts as well? Wasn't that part of your journey?
Well, yes, that was part of the journey, yes. When I was in my mid-30s, I took up a northern Chinese kung fu style, an animal style, which was extremely vicious street fighting. And I earned my secondary black belt when I was 41, and my teacher called me into the office one day and said, "You're done here." And I kind of looked down and startled and surprised, and he said, "You're too arrogant, you're too violent, you're too mean, you're too full of yourself, you're a trial lawyer, a very successful trial lawyer, now you're a secondary black belt, you're going to hurt somebody. So you need to go learn Tai Chi." So as a dutiful student, I said, okay. And I went and started learning Tai Chi, and I thought Tai Chi was this dancing stuff that old people did in the parks. And it turns out that Tai Chi is the basis of all martial arts, and it has a huge amount of subtlety to it. But the two things that struck me early on that I still work on is that the essential paradoxes of Tai Chi are the softer you are, the stronger you are, and the more vulnerable you are, the more powerful you are. Mm. So you need to be soft in order to be strong, and you need to be vulnerable in order to be powerful. Mm. That took me a long time to understand the essential truth of those paradoxes, and eventually I got it, and that's what led me into peacemaking, because I had believed that to be strong you had to be hard and tough and show no mercy, and to be vulnerable was to be exploited and to be weak and to have people run over you. And through my Tai training, and eventually I became a Tai Chi teacher, and then taught other people to be Tai Chi teachers. I learned that no, in fact, you are far stronger when you are soft, and you are far more powerful when you are vulnerable. And that goes. What I've learned is that goes completely against our biology. But when we can learn these principles and really reprogram our brains to go against our biology, amazing things happen to us.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. And thank you so much for sharing that. And Aleya, what brought you to where you are today?
I have been in the realm of alternative healing ever since I was, the age of 6. And then when I was in college, I went to massage school, and then I became a Reiki practitioner and studied with psychic clairvoyant people, and then ended up going and getting my master's in Oriental Medicine. And then in 2001, so 10 years into my private practice as an alternative healer, I had an enlightenment experience where my entire consciousness shifted within 30 seconds. And I had this amazing ability, it was pretty overwhelming at first, to literally feel other people's feelings, to feel and see where those feelings were coming from, why they were having those feelings, what they were really after, experiencing those kinds of vibrations. And also had this awareness of this multidimensional reality that we live in. So I was able to see guides and hear angels and see people's higher selves, their energy selves, and started working using the discipline of a multidimensional reality and our energetic fields to help people start shifting their consciousness. Mm-hmm. And actually, the journey with Doug began by me dreaming about him a few years before I met him, and I call it dimensional dating. So literally, in some other dimension, wow. I was already in relationship with him before I met him in the physical dimension, and, worked on all my stuff and all my insecurities and all my issues, and went into acceptance with all of the pieces that I was seeing that he held prior to me even meeting him. And so used that whole energetic framework and very high vibrational principles that I call the 7 gateways, 7 principles that help people live a clear, empowered life. In my relationship with Doug, in just meeting him, finding him in the world, and then as we navigated through the first few years of our relationship, kind of figuring out how to live our life together from a place of harmony, conflict would come forced to find ways of living from a place of peace, because that's what we're both in a gentle, joyful, obsessed with.
Wow, that is just, what an incredible story. And I know that you mentioned, I'm fascinated with how you mentioned that you, if I'm understanding this correctly, you kind of felt that relationship before it even began on an energetic level. Definitely. Or you sensed it. So that gives me hope as a single person. So that means I can actually, I know we're going to be talking about relationships here, but for people that are single as well, it sounds like they can work on their relationship skills as well, even before they embark on one. And how exactly would you recommend that someone do that? Definitely.
And I actually just finished a 4-video series that's now available off of my website for like $45. So for 4 hours of material, you get to watch videos or listen to the audio file of this series about bringing in the beloved. And the first 2 sessions, the first 2 hours, are all about clearing old relationships, clearing limitations. And then the third one and the fourth one are about giving you tools for bringing in that partner and ways to hold yourself so that you can magnetically draw that to you. And it's called Bringing in the Beloved series, and it's video and also available via audio. So if people purchase that off of my website, they can get that. And, I recommend working with it over the course of like 3 months, maybe listening to it every, like one video 1 week and then wait 2 weeks and then do the next one, and you can actually listen to it. I have people listen to the video each session like 10, 15, 20 times because there's so many layers.
That sounds fantastic, and I just want to let people know what your website is. It's aleyadao.com, so it's ALEYADAO.com for anyone who's interested in that. And you mentioned something there about you have to kind of let go of your past relationships first. Is that correct? Before you can even move on to another relationship?
You don't have to. If you don't let go of your past relationships, though, the likelihood, and if you don't heal those pieces that got triggered in those past relationships, or like father issues or mother issues, the most likely thing is that it will actually appear in your life again. And so the question is, do you want to bring in a whole different kind of vibrational relationship that has the capacity to come from a place of fullness? Well, that means that we have to be holding a vibration of fullness inside ourselves. And I got really interesting feedback. And there was one woman on the who did the Beloved session, and after the second session, she goes, I don't want the third session. I don't want a partner anymore. I'm so full. I'm so in love with myself. I'm so blissed out. And I said, well, trust the process. If it's meant to happen, it'll happen. But it was a really interesting kind of indicator of we get to this place of incredible fullness, and we create that fullness in all areas of our life, not just the beloved.
Yes, absolutely, and it kind of spills over. And then, so then once we do get to that place of fullness, then we can enjoy, hopefully, emotional and spiritual intimacy, which is what we're talking about today. So I'm wondering if both of you could share with me what got you interested in working in the field of relationships as a couple. I'm not sure, maybe we already covered that, but I'm wondering if there's anything else that you'd like to share with us today.
Doug?
Well, obviously I'm well aware of what Aleya does in her work, and as you mentioned in the intro, we were having dinner one night and just started talking about it, and because Aleya was talking about some of her clients and some of the challenges they were facing, and she often gets clients who have relationship problems, and so I started musing about, well, what would it look like if we did a relationship series and brought in our tools from our particular disciplines and work, and sort of gave everybody the male and female perspective on what it's like to be in an intimate relationship, because we have an amazing relationship. And I mean, I've never been happier in my life being in a relationship with Aleya, and I didn't think this kind of happiness was even possible. So how can we share this with other people? Because both of us are devoted to serving humanity. And so how can we share what we learned and what we've experienced so that more people can have the same kind of happiness and joy every day that we have? We don't argue. We don't fight. We have our moments of annoyance with each other, that's for sure. But, we don't have, we don't have the kind of chaos that a lot of people have in their relationships. We have incredible love. And we constantly are seeking, Aleya, really, I have to give her credit for this, constantly looking for ways to deepen our intimacy. And so it's an ongoing project. How can we make this even deeper?
Interesting. It's like, how far can you go?
Exactly. Well, there should be no limits. So we're just interested in seeing in our physical bodies how far can we take this? How deep can we get? And the key, of course, is not being codependent, where my self-esteem and my love for myself or how I view the world is completely dependent upon Aleya's approval of me. I can only love Aleya to the degree that I love myself. And if I can't love myself, if I have a hole in me, then that hole prevents me from loving Aleya. So I have to heal myself before I can be in a relationship with her at a deeper level. So each time we go deeper, she's the one that's pushing, which I really appreciate. So I have to look at myself and say, okay, where's my resistance to this, and why? What am I pushing against here, and what do I need inside myself in order to open up? Mm-hmm. And for me as a male, it's a language that I'm totally not used to. I was not acculturated to this. I was not trained in this. I was not taught this. My culture was not oriented this way. Our whole Western culture is oriented against men being aware of their own holes and their own emotional needs and thinking about intimacy at a very, very deep level. And I think that it's sad because it leads to for men, a lot of misery.
Mm-hmm. And so that leads me to a question, Doug. So what are the rewards for you of emotional intimacy? I'm wondering if you could share it, like maybe you can help, or kind of maybe like for some men who might be listening, who might be wondering, well, like what is in it for me?
Imagine being in a place, an emotional place, and a physical space where you have no anxiety. You are constantly feeling soothed and loved. You are appreciated for who you are. There's this overflowing abundance of love flowing to you, and then as a result of that, you have this overflowing abundance of love flowing out of you in this cycle of love that flows back and forth. So that no matter what is happening in the outside world, really the only place you want to be is in that space of love. And what's so interesting, I don't know how personal we can get, but we don't have a lot of friends. We really don't care to go out and socialize that much. We really would rather spend time with each other than to go out with other couples who are stressed. Mm-hmm. And we just haven't met many couples who act or behave or have an attitude the way we do. And so it's stressful in some ways for us to go out with couples who aren't at the same place that we're at. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby, what do you think?
Well, yeah, and I do think, for me at least, I live in a world where I'm very energetically sensitive, and so I'm very discerning about how I spend my free time, making sure that free time is incredibly supportive of my work time and my relationship time. And I find that there's the whole process of moving into a healthier relationship is about increasing greater degrees of self-awareness. So if I'm sitting at the table with my partner and I feel this little frustration coming up, I have a couple choices. I get to respond with a projection and a snappiness upon the partner, Doug, or I get to take responsibility for this frustration that I am choosing, some part of me is choosing to move into, and actually look at that frustration as my own journey and my growth and my evolution and completely and totally owning it. I think one of the greatest challenging things in an intimate relationship is to actually make the person that we are with responsible for shifting, healing, and even the cause of the emotions that we're experiencing, positive or negative. And so if the frustration comes up, if the irritation, if the anger, if the betrayal, whatever it is, however big or small, if we shift it and go more from the place of, I am choosing this. This is an opportunity for me to grow and evolve. How do I want to use this juice to shift the vibration? Then the relationship becomes a really healthy co-creative one instead of a codependent, dysfunctional one where Doug doesn't feel like he's good enough no matter what he does, or it goes into a level of defensiveness, because anytime we're attacked, we're going to be defensive. And so I think if there's one takeaway for people, it would be to look at it more from the place of, why am I feeling this with my partner right now? What is it inside of me that's wanting to shift, grow, and evolve? And I actually have on my website, it's called the Flip It Sheet. And we do the opposite of that which we're intending on mastering until we reach a certain level of evolution and we begin to practice that which we want to master. And so if I'm in resentment, the opposite of that is gratitude. So why don't I start practicing gratitude instead of the resentment, and look at the resentment as just a little indicator that came up for me to flip it.
That's fascinating. Oh, go ahead, Doug.
I was going to say the challenge with that is, and that Aleya is exactly right, but the challenge for males is developing that level of self-awareness. So, for example, if Aleya becomes annoyed with me or snaps at me for something totally unrelated to anything that I've done, or maybe something that I have done, who knows? how do I sit in a place of listening to that, monitoring my own anxiety, my own natural biological reaction to defense, and ask myself, okay, what am I feeling right now? How do I want to respond to this? Rather than just, fire, aim and shoot. I want to try to be very conscious about where I'm at, and it's so unusual for her to be snappy at me that when it does happen, or for me to be snappy at her. But so when it does happen, it's a teaching moment for both of us to sit back and say, okay, what's going on here? And then if we're really on our game, we'll walk into the bedroom or we'll sit down and start asking questions and say, okay, what's going on? How come this is happening? What's the issue? And then it helps us learn and grow.
I mean, it really sounds like it really is like the definition of not only being self-aware, but like that maybe it's the same thing, that conscious relationship, which I think is what we all really crave and desire, if we're really honest with ourselves. Like, I mean, this sounds really fun. That's
right. And here's the thing. Everybody craves this kind of relationship, but it doesn't come automatically. We have the capacity in our brains to have this kind of relationship. We have the biological, mental, spiritual capacity to do this, but it's hard-earned. It is, and I'm sorry, there's no justice in the world, and there's no easy way to get to intimate relationship except through going through the painful process of learning to be self-aware and reprogramming our brains to be non-reactive, non-judgmental, and non-critical. And that's hard.
And without the shame, because a lot of the times we'll go into a behavior and we'll go into this shame piece around, I shouldn't have said that. And I really invite people to see it more from the perspective of no matter how much self-hatred we're in, no matter how much shame we're in, our soul, it's almost like the greater the discomfort, the greater the discordant behavior is, the more courageous our souls are and determined our souls are to flip this into what it is our souls are really intending. So we'll collect enough what I call self-hatred chips to master self-love. But we have to get all of those self-hatred chips to eventually flip to that other place. So when the dysfunctional behavior comes up, go, oh my God, I am so determined to master something. What is it that I'm actually really working on right now?
Fascinating. So this kind of, go ahead, Doug.
I was going to say, so the trick is being able to ask yourself, to recognize the emotional state that you're in right now with your partner, and then have enough presence of mind to ask yourself that question. Just by asking the question, you move light years away from the reactive stance that destroys so many relationships and so quickly destroys intimacy. Just the ability to ask the question, what am I trying to learn here? Completely changes the attitude and the perspective of what's going on between a couple.
And I definitely want to, this kind of reminds me a little bit of, is this related to conflict resolution then? Does it use some of the same skills? Or I'm wondering what happens, before I ask you, like, say, what are some skills that we can develop? One of them you just mentioned right there. Ask yourself that question, and I'd like to know what a healthy and co-creative relationship looks like. It sounds like we've been discussing that as well, but I'm curious about, in terms of conflict resolution, what part of that is applicable to a healthy relationship, or what did you learn from your role as a peacemaker and working in conflict resolution that sparked this interest for you?
Well, first of all, I'm learning that conflict resolution is just a label, and it encompasses, and peacemaking is the label, and it really encompasses a number of skills and behaviors of that involve really deep empathic communication with another human being, and then depending upon the nature of the conflict or the nature of the problem solving, and then accountability. So you've got to have empathic communication, you've got to have an ability to figure out how to solve problems, and then you have to have accountability so that when you solve the problem, you do what you say you're going to do. Just as an aside, I was in San Antonio last week visiting their mental health, their integrated mental health system, and they have a crisis intervention team, and they have half of their police officers in San Antonio are trained in this crisis intervention, and they have a little cheat sheets of cards on crisis intervention. And I started flipping through the cards, and I realized this is the peacemaking process. I mean, almost identical to what I teach and practice. So then I'm beginning to realize that whether it's in an intimate relationship or international conflict or crisis intervention or conflict resolution or mediation or whatever it might be, we are using the same essential skills. And there's a reason why these skills work. It's because of the biology of our brain. It's how our brains are hardwired to respond to certain ways of being. And unfortunately, these ways of being are not innate. We have a capacity, but it's like riding a bicycle. We all have the capacity to ride a bicycle, but we're not born with the ability to ride a bicycle. We are not born with the capacity to be peacemakers or to be in a deep, intimate, loving relationship. We have to learn the skills, and then we have to practice the skills. And that's where things really get screwed up, is because people think automatically that, gee, I'm entitled, notice the language, I'm entitled to be in a loving relationship. What's wrong with the other guy? How come he's screwed up or she's screwed up and I can't get what I want? That's the wrong question to ask. But that's what culture imposes on us. And that's unfortunately what a lot of faith traditions impose on us. And we have to step back from that and say, no, this is a very sophisticated social skill and spiritual practice that requires, just like any other skill of importance, requires dedication and work.
Okay. And I have a slightly, did you want to ask another question?
Oh, no, go ahead. Well, go ahead. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
I mean, I definitely think that it is a lot of work, and at the same time, my whole shtick is about efficiency. And I come at it from this perspective that we also have energetic fields that surround us. We have this higher self, that aspect of us that exists in a higher dimension and is literally creating the blueprint for our behavior, our reactions, our emotions, what we magnetically draw to us. And in my work, I bring in what I call energetic protocols that are specifically geared to helping people shift the vibration of their energetic fields, those templates, those blueprints, so that when they get into situations or when they want to magnetically draw a kind of situation to them, they behave in a very different way, in a less reactive way. We react because our soul is after something. And so I just take a look at, well, what am I really after when I attack Doug? Oh, I'm actually after connection. Okay, what would happen if I dropped into a place of vulnerability and I had my energetic fields holding that energetic container for me to feel that level of courage and vulnerability? And the moment the reactivity comes up, instead of my default attack, it is more me dropping into my heart, putting my hand on my heart and saying, hey, can I just look in your eyes for a second and breathe? So using the energetic fields to literally imprint a different behavior, and that happens within 20 to 30 seconds, and then the behavior shifts completely.
I love that. And so I think that kind of leads me to my question. I'd like to, since we only have maybe 15 or 20 minutes, I would love to focus on what are some skills and practical tools that we can give our listeners right now. Let's say, for instance, what is the first step in mending a relationship that feels broken? I think it sounds like that was one of them that you're mentioning, is sort of holding that space energetically. Is that correct? Is that one of them? Or I'm wondering if there are...
I'll dive into that first piece, and then Doug can, take it from his angle. My sense is that if a relationship has been broken, there is a lack of trust, the lines of communication. We probably are feeling like we're not very safe in the environment. There might be resentment and like a rejection. So some of the core components around abandonment, commitment, trust have all gotten triggered. And the very first step to start mending a relationship is to start shifting your own inner energy, not your partner's. You can't change your partner. Only you can change you. And we will often ask our partners or want to trust our partners. And what we actually want to do is we want to trust our own divine connection to our own self, not trust our partners. And so from an energetic perspective, I would invite people at the level of their higher selves, working with their energetic fields, to lift all responsibilities that they have given to their partner, for trusting. So it's like, here, I need to be able to trust you. Take all of your trust back, all responsibility for trusting yourself. Don't trust your partner. Just trust that core divine aspect of you. And the other component, which is huge, is that we will be committed to our partner. And what I'm inviting people to do is actually to commit more deeply to yourself. And as you increase that internal commitment to your own essence, as you are loyal to your own essence, your divine connection, you then reflect that out onto the relationships. So lift all responsibilities off of the partner. Hold those responsibilities, whatever you want from your partner, hold it inside yourself. You want to be appreciated by your partner, appreciate yourself. You want to be loved by your partner, not your partner's job. You love yourself. You want your partner to commit to you, commit more internally into your own self. And then there is a fighting chance that your partner will start reflecting back to you your own internal reality.
And that's, I mean, I love that advice. And then, so what would you say in a situation where there's been a betrayal? Is there hope for relationships that even seem beyond broken? Like where there's, I mean, are there some certain situations where people shouldn't be in a relationship together, or
sure.
Can any okay?
Yeah, I think, but if two people are willing to work at it, they're willing to do whatever it takes for their own growth and their own evolution and heal their own wounds that caused the betrayal. So if there's a situation where there's been betrayal in a relationship, some part of the person that was betrayed actually asked their partner to show up in that way, to show them where they are betraying themselves. And when somebody... Go ahead, Doug.
I was going to say the other aspect of that, which is really my experience, is that sometimes you go into a relationship that you have to suffer through, have a lot of pain around, in order to prepare yourself for the relationship that you're really supposed to be in. So before I met Aleya, I was married, and although I still love my former wife in many ways, that relationship, I came out of that relationship saying, I'm never going to let this happen again to me. And it forced me to grow. So, yes, there are times when being in a relationship is unhealthy. And the way to look at it is saying, okay, what lessons do I have to learn here? How do I be better next time around? Because there always will be a next time around. And constantly striving to learn, constantly striving to grow, constantly saying, what do I learn from this? What are the lessons here? We have such a negative attitude towards education and learning and growing, and people think about education and going through primary and middle school and high school and college and graduate school, and they see education as being this horrible, tedious thing. And lifelong learning in a relationship is the secret. And if you're failing in a relationship, it may be your fault, it may be the other person's fault, it may be nobody's fault, but there are lessons to be learned there. So take the lessons. As I tell people, it's like I'm giving you these grocery bags full of goodies. Are you going to take them out around the back of the supermarket and dump them in a Dipsy dumpster, or are you going to take them home and eat them? Your choice. Dipsy dumpster or home to the refrigerator. I'm giving them to you. And so take them and do with them what you want. You've got free will and choice. But recognize that's the deal. And if you don't use them, if you don't eat them, they're going to spoil, and it just goes into the Dipsy dumpster. And then you're going to have to buy another bag of groceries and do it again.
And I love how you say that it's like that life can be like this ongoing learning experience. I really love that, because I think a lot of people, we kind of hit this wall, and we sort of think to ourselves like, that whether you want to call it I don't know, like you sort of hit middle age, maybe you think, oh, this is it. This is as far as I can go. But it's not really like that at all, is it? Like there's,
oh my God,
you can evolve as far as you want to.
I have a philosophy of life, one of many, and that is to always be a beginner at something. And right now it's jazz violin, and Aleya will tell you that I am obsessed with learning jazz violin, and I'm terrible at it. I'm getting better. But
you're not terrible anymore, honey.
I'm getting there, but it's a lot of work. But by being in that place of the Zen beginner's mind, you're constantly pushing and growing yourself. When I first met Aleya, she could barely manage an email account with AOL. And look at her today; she's an internet maven. I mean, unbelievable what she can do on the internet. works with what she does. So it's constantly growing. And you're right. It's too easy to become stale and not excited about life and get caught up in the mundane life of going to a job 8 to 5 and raising kids and doing being on the 40-year plan. You have to really figure out a way to grow. Otherwise, you start to die spiritually and emotionally. So I think that's really important. And intimacy is a great thing to practice because it is so challenging and it's so rewarding. That's what makes it so much fun.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Aren't relationships sort of like the prime place to grow in? And Aleya and I were talking about this in the, sort of right before the show started, that I really believe that I've just sort of, from my experience so far, that relationships are kind of where it's at. And it's not just with other people, it's also with yourself and maybe with a higher power as well. But everything is, I don't know if both of you have heard this, but there was that somebody was someone counseling some people that were in a concentration camp or some kind of situation, and they were thinking that they were going to want to talk about, the trauma of being at war and all that. But all they really wanted to talk about was their relationship. So it seems like that is, no matter where we find ourselves in life, like this is where it's at. Like this is where the real growth can happen, and also all the joy as well. And I was wondering if one of you could talk about how do you teach someone to deal with their emotions? Because I know that's something this is where a lot of us get stuck. Is like, and maybe we've already covered this, but sometimes we have those really deep emotions that come up, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves like we might feel like we're in a conscious relationship and that we're practicing self-awareness, and then we'll get slammed with some kind of emotion that throws us way off course again. How does one handle?
Right. Yeah. Doug, should I talk about that emotion, energy, and motion?
Well, you can do that, or I can talk about what we learned in the prison project.
We can do both.
I'll make mine. We'll do both. I'll make mine short, and then you can do yours.
Yeah.
So when I work with clients, I teach them about these emotions that are coming up, and I actually see emotions as energy in motion. And it's literally like surfing a wave. And if we use the emotion in sort of the highest way possible, we literally let the emotion pass through us like we are surfing a wave, and we let it move our entire biology to higher ground, i.e. a higher vibration. And that's really weird when we think about like a wave of grief or a wave of anger. How could grief or anger be doing anything good for us? But if you look at it more as fuel, just energy moving through you, it literally has the capacity to help your biology move to a higher vibrational state if you surf the wave and see it moving you up to this higher frequency.
I absolutely love that. Beautiful.
And the trick is there's going to be a feeling of loss of identity, loss of self, and almost an annihilation feeling, and you have to just let go of that and let yourself experience the full emotion. I completely agree with that. So let me tell you about what I learned in the prison project. So briefly, my colleague Noll and I have been working in the largest, most violent women's prison in the world, which happens to be located in Central California, teaching murderers to be peacemakers. And in this curriculum training process, if people want to find out about the project, they can go to prisonofpeace.org. But in this process, we spent a whole month in the beginning teaching the women how to listen to each other at a very deep emotional level. And what I learned in the beginning, and what we've seen repeated over and over again, is these are women who have been raped, they're drug abused, they've had no good, healthy relationships, certainly not with a man, and so was a big male walking in. That triggered a whole bunch of stuff for these women. And but they were devoted to learning to be peacemakers because they were tired of the violence. So we taught them how to read the emotional data fields of other inmates, people they were working with. And we didn't really know, we knew that they would learn the skill, but we had no clue about the transformative effect of this, because in order to be able to read somebody else's emotional data field effectively, you have to know your own emotional data field. These women were emotionally completely shut down. And so as we trained them and drilled them in this stuff, we got all kinds of pushback and anger, and people were anxious and they were tears and frustration, and I can't do this, and you guys are full of shit, and on and on and on and on. And we just persevered and kept with it and said, that's fine, just keep working at it. And amazingly, what happened was, as they developed the skill to read the emotional data field of another and do the affect labeling, which is basically stating back what the other person's emotional experience is in the moment, that their own ability to see their own experience, their own emotions started to open up. And so just kind of automatically, it was like these flowers unfolding around us, and these beautiful spirits started coming out of these women who were all murderers, life without possibility of parole, baby killers. And we would see these amazing flowers open up around us, and it was stunning to watch. And we learned that as you are able to typically connect with another person at an emotional level, as I said, through this process of reading the emotional data field, you reconnect with the core of yourself. And that allows you to be soft and to be vulnerable, and yet to be strong and to be powerful. And I mean, if we can have this experience with murderers, women who are murderers, imagine what people who are not burdened with that heavy responsibility can do with themselves.
That's just incredible, and I thank you so much. I wish we had more time to talk. We're coming to the close of our show here, but I just wanted to thank you so much for this this incredibly rich talk about the field of conversation that we're having here. And I want to make sure that people know you have a project that you're doing together. Could you maybe tell us about what that project is and where people can go to find it and to participate?
Yes, we're actually doing live and recorded tele-video webinar sessions for relationships, and we call it the Relationship Session, and people can go to Aleya, ALEYADAO.com to register. It's $25 for an hour and a half of material that will help you shift and transform your relationships intimately and also just out in the world. So feel free to join us for our very first one that we're doing on August 13th, and we actually have a free sample of something like what we're going to do on YouTube. So you can go to YouTube, Aleya Dao 11. And Doug, do you have it on your YouTube yet? He will. I
do not have it on my YouTube yet.
And so feel free to check that free one out and then register for the Relationship Series if you wish.
Sounds fantastic, and there's so much more we could cover. I just wanted to make sure that we did mention your websites and how to contact both of you, and also I just want to mention your individual work here again. So, Doug, you have your book out. It's called Elusive Peace.
Right.
Is that correct?
My third book, Elusive Peace, and the book website is elusivepeace.com. It's really about how we apply these very principles we've been talking about for the past hour or so in international conflict. And my question is, why aren't international diplomats using these very basic tools to solve the intractable conflicts of international conflict? And so the book really starts raising a question of, are we, as a people, especially in the United States, are we really devoted to peace? And the answer is that we're not. And the question is, do we want to be? And if so, then what do we need to do? Also, if people are interested in my professional work as a mediator and peacemaker, they can go to my professional website, which is Noll, Noll, associates.com.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I was going to say, they could Google either one of us and probably find out more about us than you'd ever want to know.
Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I wish that I had scheduled the show for a lot longer. And unfortunately, we'll have our prior commitments to attend to, but I am so grateful for all the information that you shared today. And Aleya, I just want to mention your website again, and you also do energetic balancing and sound healing. Is that correct?
Sound healing, and I also send out a 5 to 7 minute meditation every morning called the Daily Cups of Consciousness, and I do an hour-long live energy balancing session every 2 weeks called the Tall Cups of Consciousness, and people can go to www.aleyadao.com to check that out and get a free trial week, and join our Dao of Love on Facebook if you just Google Facebook, Aleya Dao and Doug Noll.
Beautiful. Well, we have a few minutes left here, maybe like about a minute. So I'm wondering if you could just share why is unconditional love so important, or how can you create a healthy and co-creative relationship? Maybe just like your top tip or why unconditional love is so important, just whatever you'd like to kind of close our show out here with for our readers, our listeners today.
Let me just say, have hope. There is hope. You can have a joyful, blissful relationship with a partner. You need to start with yourself before you expand outwards. But it is possible. It is our God-given right to have this kind of relationship. It's not going to come from exhortation from the pulpit or from anywhere else. It's going to come from the hard work of working on yourself and working in concert with somebody who is a like-minded person oriented towards growing intimately with you.
Wonderful.
And my closing remark is that somewhere in some time-space continuum you have mastered self-love, which is that unconditional self-acceptance for that divine aspect that runs within you. And the more you embody that, embrace that, see that, perceive it, just imagine it, you start to literally emanate with that frequency and thus magnetically draw those kinds of vibrations and relationships to you in your life.
Oh, my gosh, that is so beautiful. I thank you so much both for being here today. Like I said, I wish we had a lot more time to talk about this. Maybe you can come back again at some point. And I just encourage everyone to check out your websites and to try your program out. And I know that you both have you're offering so many incredible, like a wealth of wisdom and experience. And I just thank you so much for sharing it with us today. And I can't thank you enough. And also, I just want to say that, I have visited both of your websites. Your music is absolutely gorgeous, Aleya, and also I was very inspired, Doug, to read about what you're doing with international peace mediation. So I just thank you so much again for both being here. And, thanks again.
Thank you, Edie. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you, too. You too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.